when a development includes parking in excess of the maximum required, then pervious paving systems are required for those spaces which exceed the maximum number allowed. The city stormwater staff reviewed the applicant's proposal and concluded a conceptual review meeting with the stormwater staff should be scheduled as early as possible in the design process, and civil stormwater soil erosion permits would be required. Birmingham Department of Transportation states that any new construction or redevelopment must comply with BDOT requirements. Applicant has provided a traffic impact study for this development, and the Alabama Department of Transportation requirements must be met also for this proposed development. After the properties have been pre-zoned by the city, the applicant plans to annex the subject properties into the city limits of Birmingham. There are landscaping requirements per the zoning ordinance. The subdivision action would be required to combine the lots. The Overton neighborhood met on February 2nd, 2021 and voted to approve the proposed zoning request. The property is not located within the Northeast Framework Plan area because it's outside its limits. However, adjacent properties are, and that Northwork Framework Plan area does not have an active implementation committee. Staff did discuss the proposed rezoning request with Ken Johnson, but have not received a final response regarding their recommendation. The applicant's rezoning request is not consistent with the future land use plan of the adjacent properties, and city planning staff does not recommend approval of the rezoning request. ZAC held a regular scheduled meeting on April 20, 2021 and voted to not recommend approval. And that's for the zoning item. Do you want to consider both items simultaneously?
I think so.
Okay. So likewise, this is an annexation item. As mentioned, the item I just read is pre-zoning. If the pre-zoning is approved, the applicant would have 180 days to then annex the property into the city. If they're unable to annex the property, the pre-zoning would become null and void. So the annexation item, is for similar properties: 3520, 3526, 3505, 3500, 3540 Cahaba Valley Road, and 3456 Grants Mill Road. Once again, Wayne Graves is requesting annexation of these 5 properties that are located near the intersection of Cahaba Valley Road, which is Highway 119, and Grants Mill Road in unincorporated Jefferson County, adjoining the Overton neighborhood to the city of Birmingham. It is the intent of Wayne Graves to reserve the newly annexed parcels with property that he currently owns that is located within the city of Birmingham, with a goal of developing the said 200-plus unit apartment development and 30,000 square feet of retail to include a potential grocer. In addition, the applicant will seek to rezone all of his holdings from AG, C1, and AZD to D5 and C1 for the proposed retail development along Highway 119 and multifamily development in the rear with access from Grants Mill Road. The method of annexation: the applicant will apply for pre-zoning of the identified properties prior to initiating their annexation, with all parcels identified in the annexation application will follow the provisions of Section 114221 of the Code of Alabama. The adjoining properties in Birmingham were included in the Northeast Framework Plan in 2017. The future land use was designated as open space for all parcels owned by the Birmingham Waterworks Board. Neighborhood commercial for 3460 Eastern Valley Road, and residential low for the remaining parcels. Input from surrounding residents during the development of this framework plan wanted to preserve the rural character of the area and were fearful of any improvements to Grants Mill Road that would encourage more development. The site's proximity to Lake Purdy would be in conflict with the future land use plan established by the Northeast Area Framework Plan. The site's proximity to Lake Purdy poses concerns about stormwater runoff into the city's primary water source. The applicant would need to provide strict compliance to any development regulations established by the Birmingham Waterworks Board and the recently adopted stormwater ordinance of the city of Birmingham. In addition, regional environmental advocates such as Cahaba River Society believe that the proposed development would cause harm to the water supply. The proposed site is located on the northeast corner of Cahaba Valley Road, Grants Mill. Both of these thoroughfares are 2-lane roads. They would require the installation of turn lanes at the intersection, as well as an access road off of Grants Mill Road to provide access to the proposed multifamily development. In early development proposals for the site, the applicant had sought to realign Grants Mill Road to form a four-way intersection with Saddle Creek Parkway, but has withdrawn due to an inability to acquire the necessary parcel. At present, there are no proposed projects along Highway 119 within proximity to the site to increase lanes or add signalization at its intersection with Grants Mill Road. The property is bounded on three sides by the City of Birmingham. The parcels located to the west and north of the proposed annexation are owned by the Birmingham Waterworks Board. The annexation area bounded by Cahaba Valley Road to the south is comprised of farmhouses in the Saddle Creek subdivision. Local residents oppose the proposed development because A, its size would increase traffic on 119, its proximity to Lake Purdy would pose a hazard to the water supply, and the Northeast Framework Plan had designated the future land use as open space and agriculture, which would limit any potential redevelopment to farms, forestry, and estate, or large, 1 acre lots or more. The City Property Committee has had an opportunity to review this potential application and wanted to be certain that city services could be extended to the site. However, Finance has the opinion that the city should not be annexing projects that are strictly residential due to the cost of extending services and not receiving enough revenue to support the activity. Staff recommendations include the Department of Planning, Engineering, and Permits has examined the proposed annexation case, and the opinion of staff is that proposed rezoning for these properties would be in conflict with a comprehensive plan, adopted future land use map for the Northeast Birmingham Framework Plan. The applicant would be responsible for completing any required applications for potential rezoning. I'm sorry, well, that commentary is a little out of date. And then in addition, the Department of Planning and Engineering Permits would require any future development of these parcels will be in compliance with the development regulations established by the Birmingham Waterworks Board as it relates to density, soil erosion, storm control, and landscaping. The report does include other reports from other departments. So the Department of Transportation, to our knowledge, there are currently no transportation projects planned for the roads adjacent to the proposed development. Any street improvements recommended by the Transportation Impact Study would have to be implemented by the developers, and costs for repaving any dedicated city streets within 15 years of initial construction would come to a cost of $2 per square foot of a street area in today's dollars. Birmingham Fire and Rescue Analysis, our fire department's water officer, Fire Inspector Beneva Nelson, has previously spoken with a developer about proposal. She's familiar with the proposal in Grants Mill. Reoccurring issue with these proposed developments is that the number of proposed units trigger code requirements for alternative access. Subdivisions are required to stand in their own right, meaning they are not able to borrow property or get easements from others to meet code requirements. Let's see. These designs are usually landlocked. Developers do not favor the idea of abandoning lots to increase access. Major public safety issue, perspective of fire. Let's see, I'm not sure that that one really applies here. I think they're going to have multiple entrances. Let's see, our emergency response assessment of the property on Highway 119 Grants Mill demonstrate that there would be extended response time for the closest Birmingham fire station, which is Fire Station 32. Fire Station 32's current longest response is to Lake Purdy. The proposed properties are approximately 4 miles past Lake Purdy with Highway 280 traffic. For our response, for our first arriving, our apparatus would be approximately 10 to 12 minutes. There are mutual automatic aid agreements with Cahaba Valley Fire District, Rocky Ridge, and Hoover in place that could assist in the response. After driving, and this is a police department response, after driving the area and referencing maps, the Overton neighborhood of Birmingham is already spread out around the proposed annex sites. The Birmingham Police Department would be able to respond for calls for service for the proposed annex area. It should also be stated that as more development comes to the area, BPD would recommend hiring additional officers to patrol. Let's see, Department of Innovation and Economic Opportunity for this project stated that they are not in support of the project based on PEP description and review of the project. The following matters are major concern: conflict with the plan, Traffic impact, water, stormwater runoff. Project appears to be primarily residential, minimal commercial development, limited economic impact. The Property Committee likewise on January 14, 2021 regarding the Graves request at the Grants Mill and 119 intersection. There were concerns with the development as requested due to proximity to Lake Purdy. Attached are communications from Cahaba River Keeper, Cahaba River Society, let's see, Public Works. Department does not see an impact to the annexation to its operation. Garbage pickup would be commercial due to the amount of units, would not be the city's responsibility. The right-of-way in the area is also scattered with a mix of the city in the area already, so any right-of-way function should be minimal. Let's see, community development, city housing policy for proposed annexation. If annexed into the city of Birmingham, the subject property would be located at Overton. 2021 housing plan, neighborhood market analysis classifies the Overton neighborhood in the growth topology. Neighborhoods in the growth topology are generally experiencing strong growth in population, median home value, gross rent, incomes, have an adequate balance of older, newer properties. In general, these neighborhoods may be viewed as traditional neighborhoods, which encompass single family. Cul-de-sacs are in close proximity to desired community amenities such as parks, shopping, retail, employment, or the city center. And so that concludes the report from city departments on the annexation item.
Thank you, Mr. Gambrell. I know you're tired from all that reading. Okay, we are ready now, and the way this public hearing will work is that we will hear from the applicant or the applicant's representative, and we'll listen to what he or she says, and then we will hear from the public, either pro or con. So we'll probably ask the pro people to line up on this side and the con people to line up on that side so that you'll have 3 minutes to speak and express yourself. So we will move ahead now with the developer's representative. And if everyone would please introduce themselves and give your address.
If I take off my mask?
Yeah, I don't think there's anybody within 6 feet.
All right, Randall Minor, 1901 6th Avenue North. Attorney, I guess is probably the best way to describe myself. Maynard Cooper representing the property owners and the applicants for this annexation and pre-zoning applications. I guess first things first, this is, I think, the first formal opportunity that we've had to introduce this to this project.
Remember that our microphone is a very sickly microphone, so you really have to talk into it so that people can hear. I'm sorry to interrupt you.
No problem. This is the first time we've had the opportunity to present formally before the council. So hopefully today, I can kind of address some of the kind of traffic concerns and some of the construction and logistical concerns. At a high level, what we're trying to do with this development is do something similar to the retreat at Greystone, which is on the other side of 119, closer to 280, but it's the similar distance from Lake Purdy than this development. So we want to develop similar to that, kind of a higher end, nicer place, but basically provide the convenience and amenities of this area to more City of Birmingham residents.
And you said the retreat at Greystone.
Retreat at Greystone.
People still can't hear. So, Cody, can we do anything about the sound? Okay, yeah, the hand mic.
Very loud.
This is better? All right. So we're trying to do a development similar to the retreat at Greystone. And just so to orient everyone.
Check.
That might be better. Is this better? Yeah. All right, great. Just to orient everyone, so I think we all know generally where Highway 119 is. So we're talking about the intersection of Highway 119 and Grants Mill Road. So Grants Mill Road is, a lot of people use that to cut to 459. There's a lot of development along there. So we're talking about the northwest corner of that intersection. Currently, there are a handful of parcels, 3, as Tim mentioned, that are in the city of Birmingham. 2 of those parcels that are in the city of Birmingham are zoned D1, which is the lowest density residential, and then the 3rd parcel, the larger parcel, is zoned the hold zone. The balance of the site.
Can you point at the one that's D1? Yeah, I guess
So the
you
one
need
that's
more hands.
so there's 2 parcels that are zoned D1. And it's right here and right here.
Okay,
And I've got
thank
a
you.
smaller site plan too, if that's helpful. I can pass it around. But so those are zone D1, and along Highway 119, it's zoned in the county. And so part of that zoning is C1 in the county, and the other part of that zoning is A1 in the county. So what my client did several years ago was actually approach the city of Birmingham to have it de-annexed. So it could be similar to the retreat at Greystone, which is wholly it's not in a city. It's in unincorporated Shelby County. So he approached the city of Birmingham before I got involved, and that de-annexation application was denied. And so I met him not too long after that. We began discussing different opportunities here. As Tim mentioned, we looked at completely realigning Grants Mill Road so that it lined up with Saddle Creek. And that was kind of the optimal development as we were looking at it. But unfortunately, we couldn't reach an agreement with one of the landowners, so that's the only reason why we didn't do that. But all of the other traffic measures that we were looking at then when we were looking at doing the road realignment, we are trying to do that now. So one of the things that I'd like to do, if it's okay, is have, I'm going to have Wade talk first, and Wade is holding the this board, but Wade Lowry is the Vice President of EDG Engineering. He's the civil for the project. He and I have worked on several other projects developing around Lake Purdy, not in the city of Birmingham, but other jurisdictions. But there is and he'll get more into it, there's a watershed policy. So when you develop near Lake Purdy, you have to follow those protocols, and it's not just a rubber stamp. It's a very intense process that Wade will go through. And then we also have Aubrey Long from Skipper Consulting. He's the traffic consultant, and I hope you don't mind me saying that he's very familiar with this road, so he's going to be in the best position to answer specific questions about what we're planning to do, how we're looking at this. I think the main goal that I want to achieve tonight is just to give you guys information, let you know that we've actually studied this, but there are things here that we would be willing to change because the whole goal here is not to harm our water source. The goal is to have a development that's additive to the city of Birmingham, and in multiple ways. And so that's what we're trying to do. And we've done. Wade and I specifically have done a lot of these similar developments before. We want to do that same sort of profile. So I'll hand it over to Wade, and then I'll let you kind of lead from here. And then Aubrey will be after Wade.
So I'm Wade Lowry with Engineering Design Group. Our address is 120 Bishop Circle. We're down in Pelham. So our firm has provided to date a land survey of the property, and then we've provided conceptual site planning for the development. So what our firm, what we are concerned with on the project is the layout, the grading, the utility supply to the development. We follow the study provided by the traffic consultant on the team to draw improvements to Grants Mill Road and Highway 119. And then obviously stormwater falls under our purview to the project. So when we were first approached by the team about the project, obviously location of the project kind of came up first. So we all know that we're adjacent. The land is basically adjacent to Lake Purdy. And the good thing about that is, I'll say, that Birmingham Water Works Board has a very thorough watershed protection document, okay? So any development that occurs within a watershed of Birmingham Water Works source has to follow that document to the letter to be able to have any kind of approval. So I do have a lot of experience working through that document and the criteria that it presents. and I have worked with Randall on other projects where that was required. Basically, that document, and I won't drone on about this, that document takes the requirements of the city of Birmingham, state of Alabama from ADEM, and basically adds another exponentially more difficult and stringent layer of requirements for stormwater treatment on the site. So not only would we satisfy the city and their new, stormwater quantity and quality requirements, but we would also satisfy the state, because we're going to have a state stormwater permit. But then we would be, we would have to satisfy Birmingham Water Works. So, like I said, I have experience with that. That document is very thorough. It would be reviewed and approved by everyone involved at the waterworks, and as well as their consultant for the project. So in the layout of the project that we have right now that is conceptual at this stage, we've reserved area on the site for not only the detention of storm water for quantity of water, but we have the opportunity to implement several water quality treatment trains for runoff at the site during the construction process, as well as after the site is constructed, things moving along. So, and those items are not only what you would normally see in standard stormwater mitigation items, but also kind of proprietary things that we can specify about the project's stormwater infrastructure network that we can use to achieve all those requirements that would be put on the project. So I guess I'll switch gears from stormwater to talking about utilities. So we know that Birmingham Water Works has a main that exists within Highway 119, and that's how we would propose to serve the project with not only drinking water, but fire protection. We have received maps, infrastructure maps from Birmingham Water Works, and discussed the project kind of at a 10,000 foot view regarding water availability. Sanitary sewer will be provided by an on-site lift station that would collect sanitary sewer waste from the development, and it would be pumped away from Lake Purdy to a treatment facility owned by a private entity. We have met with that entity, and they do have the capacity to accept whatever wastewater is generated by the project. So we're not treating any kind of wastewater on site. That would be collected on site, and then pumped to a treatment facility off site. Traffic. So, obviously the location along Highway 119, we all know traffic can be rough on Highway 119. And that's why we've, the second thing everyone involved looked at was traffic. We looked at proximity to Lake Purdy first, then traffic. Skipper Consulting was brought on board to provide a traffic impact study for the project. They took the lead in that effort, provided the counts of traffic, and met with ALDOT. Highway 119 is an ALDOT controlled and owned roadway. Grants Mill Road portions of it are controlled by the city of Birmingham, and portions are controlled by Jefferson County. But the team has met with those three entities, and the state has given conceptual approval to what we've got shown. I don't remember or know if you guys have a copy of that site plan that we've got. But the project does propose to realign Grants Mill Road to eliminate what is currently an unsafe condition of how those two roads come together. Highway 119 would be widened to include turning lanes for Grants Mill Road, as well as Saddle Creek Parkway. And then there are multiple entrances planned for the development off of 119 and Grants Mill Road. So all of those items identified by the traffic study have been reviewed and conceptually approved by ALDOT. So we kind of have their blessing for what we want to do there. You know, will these improvements absolutely fix the volume of traffic on Highway 119? No, they won't, but they will help to mitigate the traffic that is brought about by the project itself. So we've talked about stormwater, erosion control, layout, utilities, and traffic. I'd be happy to answer any questions that y'all have for me from the civil perspective, if I can, if you have any.
Do members of the committee have any questions that they would like to ask Mr. Lowry? Councilor Woods?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, Madam Chair. Now, one, I think he mentioned the realignment of I think Grants Mill Road was not viable because of property ownership or inability to get ownership of the property.
So originally, when the project came about, we were trying to realign Grants Mill Road so that it lined up with Saddle Creek Parkway. Right. You have a copy of that plan that shows Saddle Creek Parkway there?
Yes.
Okay, so if you can imagine, we did propose to realign Grants Mill Road so that it came through the property. Mm-hmm. So new right-of-way obviously would be given for that, so that it lined up with Grants Mill Road. But in order to make that happen, additional property would be required on either side of that intersection of Saddle Creek Parkway, and those property owners were not willing to, I guess, participate in that. So kind of backed up and punted, and we've taken Grants Mill Road, and it's being realigned in this current plan to come in at a perpendicular intersection to Highway 119 rather than its kind of offset acute angle as it comes in now.
Okay. And then also, how far away is this where you're pumping the waste? What's the distance in between the waste and that facility?
It's about 1.5 miles.
Now, too, I don't know when this whole packet comes out, but if we can get this earlier, if possible. But I was looking at this traffic study, and it looks like you're basically reflecting a minimal impact to the traffic.
Yes, that's right. So as far as, I'll let Mr. Long get into specific questions related to traffic. Okay. He is actually the traffic engineer on the project. But
okay. I'll hold that question.
Yeah. Okay.
Are there any other questions? Well, I do have a few.
Yes, ma'am.
First of all, does your drawing show Lake Purdy on it? The one that's on this? Is Lake Purdy just off the board?
It is. And do you have this smaller copy of that site plan right there? Do you have a copy of that?
I do.
So there's a note at the top of that page where we've given an approximate measurement to the closest approach to the shoreline of Lake Purdy, and that distance is around 425 feet.
Well, I'm doing my best to see that note, but I don't see it.
Okay. It's
there are some notes.
Yes, ma'am, and I know the page is small and that text is even smaller and it's hard to see. Would you like me to come up there and point it out if that's helpful?
Oh, yeah, it's like
not up here with the 3 notes?
No, come to the right slightly.
Oh,
it's kind of in the middle, kind of angled.
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
Well, that explains why I couldn't find it. Okay, I gotcha. So the traffic study, I know he's going to talk about the traffic study, but we've heard this case once before. And my recollection, even though it was a long time ago, is that the traffic study was old and out of date, and y'all were going to update it or something to that effect, but this one still says it's from 2020.
I'll let Aubrey speak to that. Yeah, my name is Aubrey Long. I'm with Skipper Consulting. We're a traffic engineering firm out of Birmingham, 3644 Van Road, Birmingham. Okay, I'll try to be loud as I can be. Yeah, so originally this study was done back in 2017. That was the original study where we've been talking about Grants Mill Road being realigned with Saddle Creek Parkway. So we did that study in 2017, and that's when we completed the study, came up with those improvements, met with AlDOT, and had that plan approved with them. Then they asked us to come back after, from what Wade was talking about, is the property owners, they could not obtain that property. So back in 2020 is when we were asked to update that original study from 2017 with the new site plan and the new layout that they've proposed. And so we did that in 2020. We've updated the study, had additional meetings and work sessions with AlDOT first, because with accessing AlDOT roadway, we have to get approval from them to see what improvements need to be done there. So we re-engaged those conversations, had those work sessions with AlDOT, and came up with a concept of improvement plans on 119. As part of that, they would allow a single access from the development to 119. Restricted access, it'd be a right-in, right-out only. Also, 119 would be widened to a 3-lane cross-section, and that would go all the way through the Grants Mill Road intersection. And the purpose of the widening is to provide left and right turn lanes at the Grants Mill Road intersection on 119. Also had improvements to add a right turn lane into the site development access, the right in, right out. Also had improvements to put barriers in place to prevent, whenever we do a right in, right out, if you don't put something in place, people will tend to just violate those turns. So we show channelization there to prevent lefts out and lefts in. And so once we developed that concept plan with AlDOT, got concept approval, then we transitioned and went and looked at Grants Mill Road for the new site plan that they have shown. They proposed 2 access points to Grants Mill Road. And so we studied that and developed similar improvements and recommended similar improvements for Grants Mill Road. We recommended to widen Grants Mill Road. Wade talk about the realignment. Right now, when you come, and I come through this intersection just about every day, and if you're coming from Grants Mill Road approaching 119 and trying to turn right, it's a tough turn. So recommended to realign that, to straighten it up, get it more perpendicular to where you can easily make that turn. The additional improvements would be to have a left and right turn lane on Grants Mill Road. So if you were on Grants Mill Road, you'd have a left turn lane to turn back to the east, and then you'd have a right turn lane to turn back to the west, going back towards 280. We also recommended to extend this 3-lane cross-section on Grants Mill through the first site access. That would allow a left turn lane into the development, and also recommending a right turn lane coming into the development on Grants Mill Road. And after that access, the Grants Mill would neck back down to a 2-lane cross-section like it is today. So that was the update to the study. So we had recommended a substantial amount of improvements to 119 and Grants Mill Road. I know there was always the issues that we've had with the study done in 2020. Obviously, with the COVID-19 pandemic hit in 2020, had a big impact on travel patterns, people staying at home, so traffic numbers were down, and so that was tough for us as a company, is because early on we didn't have really good data to determine, at what level volumes were down. And so since that time, we've been able to get more data. RPC of Birmingham has published a lot of data that shows breakdowns of month to month of how COVID has impacted traffic volumes. For this particular case, we studied this, so we knew the scope of traffic. Like I said, we studied this originally in 2017, so we've counted in 2017, we counted in 2020. We've gone back even since then and looked at the numbers. And so with the substantial amount of improvements that we recommended on 119 and Grants Mill Road, we were confident that those improvements would handle and mitigate any additional increase as volumes continue to grow and, I guess you could say, normalize to a degree in that regard. So, but that really covers the scope. So that's the last update of the study would be in 2020. That answers your question.
Time flies when you're having a good time. It seems like it was about a year ago. I was looking for something, more up to date, but so who is funding all these roadway improvements that you're recommending? Is that ALDOT or?
Sorry, can everyone hear me? So we've had a number of conversations, with staff, DOT staff, different staff within City Hall about, possible funding options for the city. And where we've kind of ended up landing on this is that there's not really money from the city, there's not really any money from the county, and there's not really any money from ALDOT for this intersection. So that is going to be 100% a cost of the development. The development is going to fund 100% of the recommendations from the Skipper traffic report.
Okay, are there any traffic signals at any of these intersections? I really haven't had time while I'm sitting up here to plow through the traffic study, but...
Yeah. No, ma'am, there's no traffic signals at the study intersections. The only one that we would probably entertain a potential signal would be the Grants Mill at 119 intersection. However, that is, like I said, that is a DOT roadway, and so ALDOT has its own procedures and guidelines for warranting a traffic signal at the intersection. And so it's a completely separate study and process that you have to fill out. There were discussions with DOT in our concept, and it was deemed unfavorable because the issue that you have at this intersection is the predominant movement is left turns on 119 headed back on Grants Mill Road, and then the right turns coming off of Grants Mill onto 119 headed back towards 280. So that's your predominant movement. The state requires you for a side street, which would be Grants Mill Road, it requires you to discredit a large portion of right turns because it's much easier to make a right turn than it is a left turn at an intersection. So they have guidelines that you have to take away a lot of your right turns if you're trying to warrant a signal based off traffic volumes. And so because of that, this intersection, 80-90% of the turns at this intersection are right turns from that Grants Mill Road. So a large portion of that volume is discredited. And you have to maintain more than just 1 or 2 hours a day. You have to maintain 8 hours of traffic to meet their standards for warranting a signal. And so even if you meet that threshold for your morning and afternoon commuter peaks, during the day, the volumes wouldn't quite be what you would want to see at that intersection. So it would be a completely separate process, and that has to be approved from DOT. So that's why we're at that point.
Okay, well, I guess this is a rural area, so there not being a traffic signal, I can understand. Well, the rest of my questions are back for Mr. Lowry. Thank you. Okay. Wait, do you want to go ahead? Okay, so the other question is about the sanitary sewer situation. All of the sewage is going to go into a big, like, lift station?
Yes,
a
ma'am, a lift
tank,
station.
like a big tank? And then do you pump it 1.5 miles away, like down beside the roadway?
Yes, ma'am, that's right. So the sanitary sewer would be collected on site into what's termed a lift station. So that, and lift stations like this exist all over the metro area. It just so happens that the counties, the Environmental Services Department of Jefferson County, their infrastructure doesn't extend to this location. So we've worked with a private company in Shelby County that owns current infrastructure that this would be pumped to. So the waste is collected at a wet well and lift station, and it's pumped through what's called a force main, okay, a pipe about 3 or 4 inches in diameter along the roadway to get it to the infrastructure. That's actually Southwest Water Company is the name of the provider there. To get it to their existing infrastructure and treatment facilities. And we've worked with them to know that their existing facilities have the capacity to take the waste from this development.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Would you like to go ahead and ask your questions? I'm too full of questions, so
I think he kind of, because one of the questions that I wanted to ask you, and you just touched on it, you guys mentioned that the wastewater would go to a private company, and I think you may have said who that company was, but I would like to see, who it is and see some data. Are they, able to handle such a thing?
Yes, ma'am, certainly. That would be, I don't have that data with me today. We have correspondence from them where they have taken our site plan and applied, general engineering standards to the waste that would be generated by development like this. They know what the capacity of their infrastructure is, and they know for certain that they could handle that information. But we could get that documentation. That's not a problem.
Yeah, because looking at, from what I'm reading, the amount of units, and then looking at the water source, definitely to know if somebody can handle, something of this such.
Yes, ma'am.
Because that could be a very catastrophic situation. And so, just make sure all the dots and I's and everything, but I'm very concerned, especially if it has something to do with the water source, and a development of, this magnitude, can be detrimental to a community.
Oh, certainly. Yes, ma'am. That would be part of, I guess, the thing to say would be just like the adherence to the Birmingham Water Works watershed protection policy. Without that, without ALDOT's approval of the roadway improvements, without sanitary sewer, capacity, we know that we don't have a project, or our client doesn't have a project. So we would be certain, and the city's technical staff would see all of those things as part of our civil design package that would work its way through the city, just like any other project would. So there are levels and layers and many areas of approvals that would have to happen before anything is physically constructed out here. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. I do have a couple of other questions.
Yes, ma'am.
This sewage lift station, if it breaks down, what happens? Like, can people no longer flush their toilets? Does it back up in their apartment? Or what if the tank or holding unit is full?
Yes, ma'am, that's a great question. So these lift stations are almost like small buildings, if you will. And, those things are designed per State Department of Health criteria. So you have kind of redundancy built into a lift station like this. There are backup pumps. There are generators that would come online if we had a long-term power outage. And the wet well, and that's just another term for the holding tank that the pumps sit in, those things are sized so that you factor in, should something happen like a power outage or something like that, it has days of capacity where,
Okay.
where citizens can
Yeah, I
keep
could
on.
just imagine some bad things.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
And also, I've been near a lift station once, and it didn't smell nice.
Okay.
Do new ones work where all of the odors stay, they get pumped to that treatment plant?
Yes, ma'am. I mean, the design intent, obviously, if you have odor, okay, from a lift station, there is something that's not quite functioning properly about that. So, can I stand here and tell you that would never happen? Well, no, but the intent of the design, the technical specifications of that system, that should not occur.
Okay, but they're not like purposefully vented out into nature where,
No, now they would have vent pipes just like your home does, but the air that is coming out of there should not carry a lot of odor with it.
that's good,
Yes,
because
ma'am.
that would be highly unpleasant. And then I wanted to ask about your parking. It says here that you have a total of 492 parking spaces and that it exceeds the parking requirement, and I was wondering why.
Yes, ma'am. So I guess the reason why you typically on a development like this, it is not out of the ordinary to exceed the required number of parking spaces. So we know that if you're a resident here, you probably have a car. If you have guests to your apartment or whatever, they're going to drive there and they want to have a place to park. We have a retail component up on the corner of the property, and retail parking and use can fluctuate monthly, even daily. So it's not uncommon to have above the required parking on a development like this. Now we know, because we're hopefully going to be within Birmingham, Birmingham's new stormwater ordinance is pretty unique. Any parking that is in addition to the minimum required number of spaces, that parking's got to be surfaced with a pervious pavement. Okay, so when we were all sitting around looking at this and drawing it, I kind of see that as a bit of an advantage for our project, and one item that will only help us with environmental, with stormwater runoff, stormwater infiltration and treatment back into the ground. So as far as your question of why are there more parking spaces, I don't know that I can give you an answer other than it is
You might
making
need them.
use of the space that we have. Yes, ma'am.
Well, and I guess having people park out along Grants Mill Road when they couldn't find a parking place would
Yeah,
probably be a bad idea.
We would not want that.
Okay, so where is this retail? Because I don't see it on this map.
Okay.
Or at least if I do see it, I can't recognize it.
So
Randall again. What you're looking at is an updated site plan, and I think, Wade, I'm seeing what you're looking at. So our current application only seeks to annex in the residential portions of the development. So that's what you're seeing now is just the residential, and we can talk about that further, but the short of that is originally we had both the residential and the commercial coming into the city of Birmingham, and really we just withdrew it because we weren't sure if we ever were going to have a hearing. I think there's been a lot of back and forth on hearings, and so because that corner is zoned commercially already, a lot of the uses that we were thinking about, we figured out the city zoning. But I think it is the preference of the owner if we can get a rezoning path for all of it to be in Birmingham if possible.
Okay, so that's on Lot 1?
Right, Lot 1.
Okay, thank you. I think,
Can I just add one thing, just to kind of just reiterate if this ultimately goes to the council and ultimately, if they consider it for approval, what I would anticipate is all of these things that we've been talking about in terms of the lift stations, the compliance with all the different things that we've talked about, those would be incorporated in queue conditions. That is, been my number one thing with the client from day one on this is that, when you're developing this close to the water resource, obviously you have to follow the rules as written, but if there are special rules and considerations that the city council wants to adopt for this site, given its location, we're definitely interested in that.
okay, and one more question. This property in the long-range land use plan is identified for residential, low, and open space. So why is the developer not developing it for what it's already identified for?
Great question. So I think the primary reason, there's two, right? One is obviously financial, but the other piece of it is if you look on the internet, you look at all the Facebook groups that are in opposition to this, the number one thing people say is Grants Mill Road is a problem, Highway 119 is a problem. But there's no funding source to fix those problems. And the only way to finance those currently is for the developer to develop similar to what's already on 119, develop a similar development, and then he can afford to fund all of these costs that were just explained. And I've actually got a representative of the development team here as well. If you guys had questions for him, John Mejia, he was able to join, but I just wanted to introduce him, and if there are questions you guys had of him, he'd be happy to address those.
Okay, well, I suppose if he has any unique information we hadn't heard yet, we should hear it.
John Mejia, Providence Investments developer.
Can you please say
John
that?
Mejia, M-E-J-I-A. Yes, so what Randall was saying, the road is going to be majorly improved. There's going to be a light there. There's going to be the expansion of the road is going to be made to absorb, high traffic, also slow down lanes that will make it very, obviously for people entering and exiting the complex in conjunction with the other vicinity neighborhood across the street. So we're going to make that a very safe zone. Also, a lot of people are going to benefit from this, not just us. Residents towards Leeds, towards coming to Birmingham, and hitting the major part of Greystone, all that vicinity, not just only 280, but people are going to be able to come around and also alleviate the traffic from that area as well through our section. But the best thing about it is I'm not asking for any tax annexation. I'm not asking for a penny from the city, no one else. I'm doing this on my own cost, and it's a way of me basically saying to all you Birmingham, saying, look, we're going to do what is right for the city, but also we're going to do what makes sense and keep it safe, but also affluent. Because if you drive by there all the time, which I do, it is a gridlock in the evenings, in the mornings, and it creates a lot of problems. And I think there's more accidents because of it. So what we're doing is we're gonna try to alleviate that and also make it better with lights, traffic lights, slow lanes and speed lanes, and of course. Widen up the road and make that at our own cost.
Well, when I drove out there to see this location, I got stuck in the gridlock too. So
I don't like gridlocks.
I was very impressed with the gridlock, especially since I thought I was out in the country.
Well,
I thought I was, I thought I was going to see some cows and horses, but I was not.
No, as you know, it's a growing area, and how are we going to grow Birmingham and create it, provide more for the city? But we got to improve our roads, and that is one thing that people overlook all the time. I mean, look at 280. I mean, I know there's a lot of traffic through there, but we're not going to fix the problems of 280 or 60 or 459, but we're definitely going to make it better and easily accessible and in conjunction with that, I think not just us, we're going to benefit. There's a lot of other folks that are going to benefit from this. Because let's face it, there's going to be more, retail coming in the area. There's going to be more stuff around us. And if we don't do something about that, it's going to create a major issue. So I am willing to take the chance and make the investment to make that work, which will enhance Birmingham's productivity and also bottom line, in my opinion.
Well, thank you. Do any members of the committee have any further questions? Yes, Councilor Woods.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Quickly, and then we'll try to hear from the residents, but I did want to circle back to the traffic piece. I was, like I said, just was trying to look through it, and it appeared that you're basically saying that this development will have a very minimal impact on traffic, basically on 119 and Grants Mill Road. And I want to kind of circle back to that, and just if you could talk through the, I guess, lack of impact or how that's going to be accomplished.
Yeah, so whenever we do any kind of study like this, we're trying to mitigate the impacts of the development. And so what we do is we take a look at what the road is today, and then we project traffic for this development and apply that to the existing traffic and say, okay, what does it look like in the future? And so whatever changes and impacts there are, then what improvements do you put in place to mitigate those impacts of the development? And so that's what our study did. That's what we took into account. And then that's where you see all of the improvements on 119, all the improvements on Grants Mill Road. And like I said previously, the predominant movement is your left turns on the Grants Mill and your right turns off of Grants Mill coming back onto 119. And so the improvements that would be put in place for the increase in volume there would be to provide turn lanes for Grants Mill Road, widening Grants Mill Road so that we have a left turn lane coming into the site, so that doesn't block traffic trying to go through Grants Mill. Turn lanes on 119 in both directions, left and right turn lanes, because again, that left turn is a big number. So providing a left turn lane for that maneuver, and then too with the restrictions of access to the development on 119, as we talked about with ALDOT, making that a right in, right out. We didn't want to have that as a full in that area because then you just add more conflict points, you add more congestion in that area. So restricting that to a right in, right out, you're not going to have left turns trying to block traffic there. You keep traffic moving, move it down to Grants Mill, provide the left turn lane for them there, and then continue the improvements up on Grants Mill.
So I guess my thing is this a road that backs up like in the morning? And so I guess it sounds like what you've done is improve like entry or egress and ingress into the different sites or intersections, but how do you like the actual traffic volume that's on that road? And that's kind of my concern. So I was trying to see, did you see any impact there as far as that being worse or better?
So right now today, you have Grants Mill Road tees in to 119. It's just a 2-lane cross section in each way, 1 lane in each direction. There's no turn lanes there. So I can tell you, I go this way in the afternoons. I'm making that right turn. Some days you hit it and it's fine, and some days, right now, if you have, for instance, a left turn, if someone wants to turn left on Grants Mill back on 119, they're blocking everybody behind. So if they're having to wait to turn left, every car behind them that wants to turn right is blocked. And so you can get back up there pretty regularly. So that's where coming in and putting the turn lanes in. So if you do have a left turn vehicle there, they don't block the right turns from being able to make that maneuver. Same situation for 119. Today, if you're turning left onto Grants Mill Road, there's no turn lane. So if you're turning left, you stop and waiting for opposing traffic, you're now blocking traffic behind you. Widening 119 to give that turn lane now would allow the through movements on 119 to go around and maintain flows through that area.
Okay. But in summary, you're saying basically these adjustments at these kind of intersection or transition points alleviates and improves traffic overall? Or?
It improves, yes, it improves traffic flows and mitigates the impacts of the development. Is it going to make everything just like no delay and you just flow right through there, everything's perfect? No, because whenever you have that kind of intersection, those volumes, you're going to have some delay. And so whenever we're working in that situation, especially with a state roadway, the main priority is to keep traffic flowing as best we can. When you know you have these high turns, provide storage so you can store them to maintain traffic around you. And so that's what these levels of improvement would do.
Okay. All right, thank you. And then also, you said Lot 1 is not currently in Birmingham and is not currently a part of the request.
Yes. Can y'all hear me? Lot 1 is not, and we're saying Lot 1, that lot actually doesn't exist as Lot 1 now. It's a different, that's not, but we're hopefully if this gets approved, we'll do a resurvey and call that Lot 1. But Lot 1 is just for everyone's benefit. It's the property immediately adjacent to Grants Mill and 119. And so that property is zoned C1 in Jefferson County currently. And so the property owner has received, during this time that we've been going through this process, has received a couple of inquiries about it for retail operations. And so just to not have it held up in zoning with the city, we withdrew that part. But holistically, how we've been looking at this from day one was, just going back to, the framework plan and what the long-range plan for the city. Our position is that there's been a change of circumstances twofold. One is the availability of the sanitary sewer with Southwest Water, and that would be obviously a queue condition if we had that. And the second thing is all of these traffic infrastructure improvements. Those were not things that were knowable, even thought about when the city was looking at this previously, because you didn't have a developer doing it, and most of the property over there wasn't even in the city of Birmingham, so it's not really appropriate for the city to even be thinking about that. But now that we have a developer in place that's going to fund those traffic infrastructure improvements and the sanitary sewer, this makes it developable. And the only way to fund those, unless the city, the county, the state is going to come up with the money, is through this development, because we're going to fund 100% of those costs. So that's how we've been thinking about this from day one. And part of the return to the city of Birmingham, in addition to the property tax, the construction sales tax, the additional residents of the city of Birmingham is going to be the retail. And if we have retail at that corner, by the way, my client also owns property on the other side of the corner that's in Jefferson County. There's real opportunity for the city of Birmingham to benefit and recoup some of the investment that it's going to be making in terms of extending city services to these sites.
Yeah, like I said, I know and I'm probably going to do some more research on the water impact because of the proximity to Lake Purdy, but it's hard to consider this as a residential only item if the city is not even in line to get the commercial benefit. But I'll pause so we can get a residents an opportunity to talk.
Councilor Abbott,
circle back.
Would you mind if I ask a question or two and make a few comments?
Oh, please do.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I think these are probably for Mr. Lowry, if you would. And so I was wondering about this wet well. Number one, how big is it?
I don't know.
You don't know?
Not yet.
Okay. So, and let me ask you this. Is it possible that it could fail and leak?
Anything's possible. Right.
So it could leak. It could cause problems that way. And how often, well, I guess it doesn't matter how much it pumps, whatever, but, and so let me ask you this on the stormwater plan. I know this idea about, you say, well, we just provide pervious paving, has there been any thought given to making the entire site a pervious paving?
Well, we haven't thought about that to date.
I mean, that would definitely limit the amount of stormwater that would come off the site. And then I'm curious, I mean, do you think that would be a consideration, potentially?
Potentially.
Yeah. And I'm curious, about the buildings. I mean, are there plans for cisterns or ways to control stormwater that way off the rooftops?
I don't know.
So, obviously stormwater is going to be a major issue here, and it would seem that, is there any plans for undisturbed buffers?
Sure is.
And how much of that site, do you know a percentage?
I couldn't tell you a percentage, but, like I said, when I was first standing up here, the first thing we looked at is stormwater runoff.
Right.
Because of the site's proximity to Lake Purdy. That was the first thing
Right.
that anyone looked at from the design team's perspective about this site.
Okay.
So we do have items identified on the site of undisturbed area and stormwater and water quality retention on the site. I think you can probably see where we've tried to show some of that undisturbed area there on the site plan.
Okay. But obviously there's going to be mass grading, do you have any idea what percentage of the site would be disturbed?
Not standing here right now, no, I don't.
Okay, well, that's interesting. If that was the main consideration, you would, but anyway. So I guess the comments that I wanted to make is to the point about conditions. I do know that when we discussed this previously, we did want to include several conditions if the case does go forward and is approved. And, one of those being that the Birmingham Water Works Board standards would be complied with fully. Two, that, any requirements from BDOT, would be, required as part of the development, and that those would be at the owner's expense. And then restrict the use of any commercial uses where there would be no drive-throughs. And then the fourth condition would include that, no septic system or package plant would be allowed as part of the development. And then the last thing I wanted to say is that, just a reminder, about the comp plan, and the sensitivity of the area, that, the comp plan doesn't consider this a growth area. It doesn't consider it that. It considers it a conservation area to protect the water source. And so I think that's important, to kind of think about this thing. It's not a development area according to the comp plan. It's a conservation area. So, dense development is not recommended by the plan. And that's all I have.
Thank you. We are ready to hear from the public, and I'm sorry that y'all have had to sit here so long, but we have to ask our questions so that we know how to vote. And so now, if members of how many people are here to support this project? How many people are here to oppose this project? Okay, well then I'm not going to make you line up because you're all here to oppose it. So I would ask that you come up one at a time, or if you have a spokesperson for any little group of y'all, someone who, okay, you don't. So if you just come up one at a time and, either put your lead dog on first or save him for the end, or her. But you have 3 minutes to speak, and all that we ask you to do is state your name clearly. And we have a sign-up sheet outside that I forgot to put out. And so we have one now. We would like everyone's names and addresses just for the record. But if you will come up, state your name and address, and you have 3 minutes to speak. And if you start getting really over 3 minutes, I will signal you. Okay? Thank you. And you can take your mask off to speak because there's nobody too close.
I'm hoping you can hear me through it okay, but if not, I'll take it off. My name is Ben Wegleitner. I'm with the Cahaba River Society. Our address is 2717 7th Avenue, Birmingham.
Okay.
We've stated our position on this in the past, and as we've stated also in the past, we often don't take a position on rezoning and annexation cases, with the exception of cases that strongly either violate a comprehensive plan or, in this case, in addition to that, threaten the drinking water source of the residents of Birmingham and about 1/5 of the residents of Alabama. So we just want to proceed with extreme caution on any kind of development that might threaten the drinking water, either through stormwater impacts, runoff to the site. I remember hearing the folks from the team state that this is about 425 feet from Lake Purdy. When you think of a watershed, all water that falls on the land area within a watershed is going to reach that water body. So the distance doesn't make much of a difference if the whole site, 100% of the site is graded and no buffers are preserved and no infiltration is occurring of that stormwater. But in addition to stormwater, we're also concerned about the wastewater. It sounds like there's more of a solution than what we've heard previously, but we're still very concerned about any kind of sanitary sewer overflows that could occur out here to, again, threaten the drinking water source. So each one of the committee members did receive an email from me with some of the background information and our past positions on this, so I hope you'll take that into consideration. And I think that that's it for the comments of the Cahaba River Society, but we do want to remind the committee members of the reason why we're involved in this, and it's because of the potential threat to Lake Purdy and to our drinking water source. So we just want to proceed with extreme caution in areas like this. We know that the defenses put in place by the Birmingham Waterworks Board, by the City of Birmingham, and even by ADEM are guidelines. They're mandatory guidelines, but they're not foolproof or fail-safe, and that sediment and stormwater and wastewater can and does easily reach these water bodies. Thank you.
Thank you. Before we move ahead, is Ms. Neighbors here? Would you like to come up and tell us the Waterworks thoughts on this issue?
Y'all hear me with this one? Or should I use the other?
Maybe use the handheld, it might help.
April Neighbors, Birmingham Waterworks Board. I am the superintendent for our environmental and administration division within our engineering department. We also have our environmental consultant here with us tonight, and our watershed specialist is with us as well. And we have prepared a statement for you guys about this development. We do appreciate the opportunity to attend today's hearing regarding the zoning request located at this intersection between the Cahaba Valley Road and Grants Mill Road. The Birmingham Waterworks serves a population of over 600,000 stretching across 5 counties, including the city of Birmingham and its surrounding metropolitan areas. We own and operate Lake Purdy, which serves Shays Mountain Filter Plant, which is the one on 280 that most people are most familiar with. And this is one of the primary drinking water sources for that facility. And that facility serves approximately half of our waterworks customers. So this area surrounding Lake Purdy is very important for us and very protected. We have a very strong watershed protection policy for this area that we are very proud of, and we work with each of the developers to implement. We would ask that if the committee or the council is considering approval of the proposed development, that the Birmingham Waterworks would request that the city require the developers to comply with the watershed protection policy, which I know y'all already have that in your notes for this one. And then we would also ask that we would be given a chance to facilitate a formal review and confirmation just to make sure that compliance is being met before any official approvals would be given. So again, we thank you for the opportunity to attend today's meeting, and we appreciate you listening to our concerns.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions? And you said your name is
April Neighbors, and it's Nabors.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Ms. Neighbors. Now we are ready to hear more comments from residents. Who's next?
Hello, my name is Pam Young, and I live in the Grants Mill subdivision. And my name is Pam Young. I live in the Grants Mill subdivision, and that is at the intersection, almost at the intersection of 119 and Grants Mill Road. And Ms. Abbott, I appreciate you driving out to that area so you can get a visual of the traffic pattern. And you, sir, for asking the questions that you did. I'm concerned about safety. I go down that Grants Mill Road just about every day, and I am one that makes that left-hand turn. Right now, if I want to make a left-hand turn in the mornings or in the afternoons, I am at the mercy of traffic stopping for me to make that left-hand turn. Now, I imagine if we added 3 more residents to that area, which could turn into maybe another 150, and some of them want to make that left-hand turn and go into Leeds. And did I understand one of you said something about traffic lights? I believe you did.
Please address
address
the
us.
chair.
Okay, all right.
And I asked about traffic lights.
Okay,
So.
but I did not get confirmation there would be traffic lights, there would not be.
Well, he just said that AlDOT is the one who makes that decision. And they
Yes.
have criteria, and right-hand turns don't seem to count very much, and left-hand turns count a lot, and you have an 8-hour stretch of time that they measure.
Yes.
So rush hour kind of...
I understand. Okay, I caught that. But how is this this plan going to help me, even with the turning lanes, to make my left-hand turn? I didn't see where that was. Their plans was going to be any benefit for left-hand turns. Right now, even with right-hand turns, when we sit there to make a right-hand turn, we have to wait for traffic to even clear for Saddle Creek to go in. We're backed up. And if we're coming from Sickard Hollow Road, that's a lot of traffic. He's talking about improvements at the beginning of Grants Mill, not all the way through. There's no shoulders on that road. We had a fatality this last fall. We've had transfer trucks that get stuck. They cannot handle that road. We have to wait until the tow trucks come to clear up traffic when there is an accident. I don't see how this is going to work, and I'd be very disappointed if it goes through.
Thank you. Thank you for your comments. Next speaker.
My name is Tricia Sheets. I'm a resident across the street from this proposed development. My street address is 3585 Cahaba Valley Road, Birmingham. And I greatly appreciate the opportunity to talk with you today. I am opposed to this development, and there's many reasons for it. It's very inconsistent with the existing community and the future plans, as Mr. Gambrell has said, that's been envisioned by the city of Birmingham for the area. Many of the residents who oppose this proposal have written letters. We've participated in every hearing that's been held regarding the Graves request. As you may already know, that this has been put on the agendas numerous times for meetings, and then it gets pulled from those agendas just a few hours before the meeting is scheduled to take place, and it makes it very difficult for residents to be notified. I noticed from the case number that we're already 2 years into this before the city of Birmingham. Prior to that, this land went before Jefferson County, and a lot of times the same type of pull from the agenda at the last moment occurred during that process. But this is just not any land. It's just not land to be developed. This is an important part of the Lake Pretty watershed, and as has already been said, all the drainage is direct drainage directly to Lake Purdy, even during construction and then the long-term stormwater thereafter. 425 feet to Lake Purdy gives you no opportunity for mistakes. There is no mitigation opportunity there. This development plan that I have seen has very few amenities for the residents who will be living in 12 three-story buildings. They're going to be out in Lake Purdy. 325 feet, they'll be playing in the lake. And of course, the Waterworks Board has it posted. No bodily contact, no private boats. It's supposed to be very controlled. It'll be extremely difficult, though, for the Birmingham Waterworks Board to enforce that measure. And speaking of enforcement, and I greatly appreciate that the Waterworks Board has sent representatives here to speak with you today and talk about it, but those protection plans that the Birmingham Waterworks Board has in place have very few mechanisms for enforcement. And once the damage is done, it is done. Now, they can threaten to cut your water off, but the damage is done by the time that opportunity takes place, and it's a long process. In fact, I don't know of anyone who have had that take place.
I think that meant your time was up, but if you could wrap up your...
Sure.
I'm just kidding.
You know, I want to commend the staff of the City of Birmingham departments who have done extensive reviews, as you can tell. And from their findings and their recommendations, there have not been many that have been positive. And just to name a few, the proposed zoning request is not consistent with the long-range land use plan. The planning staff did not recommend the approval of this project for rezoning before the ZAC. The ZAC did not vote to recommend approval at their April of 2021 meeting. The sites approximate to Lake Purdy would be in conflict with the future land use plan established by the Northeast Area Framework Plan. I myself and many of my neighbors participated in that Northeast Framework Plan, and we spent a lot of time in that process and being a part of the process. The Birmingham Fire and Rescue found that there were major safety issues related to those roadways and their ability to respond to fires. The Birmingham Police Department would need to have additional officers. The Finance Committee had the opinion that the city should not be annexing projects that are strictly residential due to the cost of extending services and not receiving enough support for the facility. Basically, what that means is that the citizens of Birmingham are going to be subsidizing this developer's project.
Thank you, Ms. Sheets. We appreciate your comments, and we want to hear from a few more people, but we appreciate your thoroughness. Next speaker. Well, maybe there weren't any more speakers. Oh, there are speakers. Okay. Just jump right up and come talk to us. Yeah, please tell us your name and your address.
I'm Judy Pittman, and my address is 1016 Millstone Road.
Thank you.
I've never been involved in a process like this, but what keeps coming into my mind is to actually the committee. Is most of the zoning and planning procedures this complicated, where every facet of our life is affected? The residents' lives are affected by police, by fire, by traffic, by water, but you know, all the safety issues. Is that common?
Yes, it's common on large projects. I mean, certainly if you're in the middle of a neighborhood already, it's not as big a shock. But yeah, a lot of times, especially big development projects, touch a lot of different aspects of people's lives.
Well, I understand that part, but how long will this go on? How many hearings?
Well, there's one more after this one. We're a subcommittee of the city council, and each committee has 3 members, and we examine issues very thoroughly before they go to the city council. And we vote at the end of the meeting and give our recommendation to the full council for how it should go.
There's one issue that also came to my mind that I did not hear anything about, and that is electronic signage. Is that area permitted to have any type of electronic lighted signs?
You mean like a flashing sign or something?
Directional signs, the retail signs.
Well, Mr. Gambrell would be able to tell us, what kind of sign the apartment complex would have.
Yeah, the apartment complex, probably would be permitted to have a small monument type sign, which would be, just a small sign off the ground, not a large pole sign, but a small monument sign. Potentially, there could be some lighting, but it wouldn't be, it would be just kind of backlit or uplit, that kind of thing.
Probably indirect lighting.
Right.
Well, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Needless to say, I'm personally opposed to this project and am really puzzled that it's even being considered because of its proximity to Lake Pretty.
Well, anyone can ask for anything. So, next speaker, please.
Jonathan Schaefer, 6304 Old Mill Circle. I live in Grants Mill 119 community right off of 119. I am opposed. First off, thank you for allowing me to speak and for having us here. I'm opposed to this hearing and to this development. I'd like to real quick give you a brief explanation of why my wife and I decided to buy a house in this community. We moved in 2.5 years ago. We decided to get out of city limits and into the quote unquote, like you had said, the country. Thank you for coming out there and seeing where this location is at on 119. But we wanted to get away from what my wife and I like to call the riffraff and the city life and get into the country life. And we've all driven by this intersection of Grants Mill and 119. We fell in love with the horses. We fell in love with the smaller, close-knit communities, Saddle Creek. We have friends in Saddle Creek, Greystone, and then in our community as well. So with that, it attracted us to buy the house and also to have a family. So we just started a family, my wife and I. We have a 2-year-old and now a 4-month-old. So it's a huge concern on numerous fronts for me, financially, for us buying this property, to safety with my wife and now kids. There was a bad accident that just happened out there. Somebody was describing a couple months ago, shut down 119. We had people pulling in our neighborhood that lived in Saddle Creek to park their cars for the night to just walk to their house through the woods. So any type of issue, accident, since it's a 2-lane road, it's completely shut down for hours, as is noted in this document as well from the fire person that gave their opinion on this development. Stormwater runoff. I highly recommend you guys drive to our neighborhood. You will see the issue with stormwater runoff in the past couple years, at least 2.5 years since we've lived there. Stormwater runoff and the amount of rain we received in the past 2 years has been, off the charts. And so right now the bodies of water are connected throughout communities all the way to Lake Pretty. this is just going to be multiplied and have the potential for a disaster with any issues in sewer or drainage. Traffic, we've already beat that dead horse. Not one positive or in favor recommendation in this document or from any division or department within the city. I think that is pretty, glaring and speaks for itself. The one neighborhood that voted for approval, Overton neighborhood, is over the mountain. I wonder why Saddle Creek, Greystone, or my neighborhood didn't, get picked to vote for approval on this. And lastly, the biggest thing is Pandora's box. This gets approved, this is going to open Pandora's box for not only the issues that come with it, but additional developments, and then you just ruin the nature aspect of Lake Purdy and this community. So I just highly caution you on that when you vote and pass this on.
Thank you very much. Are there any other speakers? How many more people want to speak? Let me just see hands. Just one more.
Hello, my name is Paul Brassfield. I live at 1093 Old Mill Run, and I'll be short and sweet, but I'm not going to go back over all the objections that are on this list other than one of the main ones, maybe the land use plan that took so long to get, and now we want to go against the land use plan, which I think the land use plan is typical for that, is a good plan for that area, which has been described as a rural area, and it still is a rural area. I've lived in that area for 12 years, and I've worked on 119 for 41 years, and I am familiar with the traffic headaches on 119 in Grants Mill Road, and I'm also one that travels Grants Mill every day and has to make those left-hand turns. And if you're not real familiar with this area, that's going to be between the Lake Purdy Bridge and 119, which is a short span. And it's typically on Rush Hour backed up to the Lake Purdy Bridge, and now you're going to put an entrance to this development on Grants Mill Road between there where it's already backed up with people coming in and out of there. So that's going to be a nightmare as well. And I guess one of my main objectives, worries or concern is about the runoff into our water source. And what I did for a living for 40 years is selling lift stations for sewer lift stations, and sold pumping systems for 40 years. I'm retired now. And I work for Brownlee Marr Engineering, which is about a mile down the road. And while there is, so basically you're going to put a giant septic tank there in this property and pump it off when it fills up. You might not call it that, but a sewer lift stations. And there are safeguards and backups and stuff like that. But they do fail on occasion. Look at City of New Orleans, Katrina, and all that kind of stuff. Pumping stations do fail, and where's that going to go? It's going to, the sewage and water runoff's going to go right into Lake Purdy, because there are things that do happen. But those are my concerns. The main concern is the water runoff and the traffic issues, and just going against the land use plan. It just doesn't make sense for this area. I'm not against development or apartments, but it just doesn't make sense for this rural area. And I thank you very much for the time. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker.
My name is Linda Nelson. I live at 1036 Millstone Road. I have a number of objections to this project, but I would like to share one experience with you which could impact anyone at any given time. On May 31st, this past May, Memorial Night, at 8:20, my husband had a stroke in our living room. I immediately called 911. Thankfully, they were on Rex Lake Road, and since it was a holiday and 8:20 in the evening, it took them just a very few minutes to get to us. And I'll pay it forward now by sharing with you all, if it ever happens to you, if someone ever has a stroke, you have a window of time of 3 hours to get that person treated, or else could be death, could be permanent disability. Unfortunately, it happened on Memorial Night for us. They left Rex Lake Road, came down Grants Mill to us in 119 in our subdivision. Got us to the hospital in time. And thank God that it happened that night, because if it had happened on Monday through Friday between perhaps 4 and 5 p.m., I would be telling you a different story. Just want to stress to you the importance of Grants Mill is only 2 lanes between Rex Lake and 119. That turning part, that doesn't help if you get trapped in traffic between Rex Lake and 119. Thank you for your time and for allowing me to speak, and I just wanted to share that concern with you, and I'm certainly opposed to this project for safety as well as other reasons, and thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Do members of the committee have any questions, or are you ready to make a motion?
No questions. I think we can move forward with making a motion. I think kind of looking at project, definitely have some concerns. Definitely have a lot of cons. I would say the cons outweigh the pros. I think as constructed, still a lot of kind of open-ended traffic concerns. The water issues, I think looking into more about what the waterworks plan is and with that, getting more details around that. So I'll do more research on that front. But with the exclusion of the commercial properties and associated with the development, kind of as the project presented today, I move that we move this to full council with a recommendation of deny.
Okay, it has. We have a motion for denial and a second. And is there any further discussion? I would like to make a personal comment on this. I have a lot of concerns. Number one is the proximity to Lake Purdy. You just cannot deny that water rolls downhill. What's in that water could be problematic, and we'd be drinking it. The traffic impact, since I visited the site and got to languish in the traffic, I can kind of feel your pain. The fire department says that there is a major public safety issue. Stroke, heart attack, automobile accident, chopped your foot while you were cutting wood. I mean, the fact that they can't get there in a timely manner or might not be able to, depending on the time of day, is a concern. The BPD, Birmingham Police Department, they say they can serve the area, but they need more officers. Well, guess what? We're short over 100 officers right now. Yeah, they need more officers, but the chances of getting any are probably pretty slim. And then one of the biggest things is the conflict with our city's new comp plan, comprehensive plan, and the Northeast Framework Plan. Both of them have just been recently completed, and we would be going against what we said we wanted. And last, the finance department says that, residential doesn't provide any revenue to support the expense of the services that we have to provide. So, those are the main issues that I have with this, and we, I believe, are ready to vote.
And I just want to echo what my council members have said also, the safety, and as the chair of public safety, we're very concerned about the safety, of our residents, and especially as Councilor Abbott said, and they mentioned in the report that if the project is pushed through, which we obviously are not, going to make that recommendation, but they have to hire more police officers, and as she stated, we are short of officers, and a grave concern for me is the water supply. This mechanism collecting water, and I'm just deeply concerned about that, because when you look at what happened in Michigan some years ago, I'm very concerned that that something like this could happen here, and so I yield the floor back to Council Chairwoman.
Okay, we have a motion that has been properly seconded. All in favor say aye. Aye. So we will recommend to the full council that this not be approved. And that is the end of the case for everyone here. And now we are ready to go to our next item on the agenda. And I'm assuming that the Roosevelt,
Actually, I happen to know the first items. I texted that property owner, and they said they want to withdraw the case. First one.
Okay, well, thank you. We appreciate it. We appreciate your efforts. We're always happy to see you, but sometimes the cases you bring us, we're not as excited.
Understand?
It's a job. Okay, so we have one more item on our agenda, which is old and new business. Do you have any old or new business? No, I don't. And the next item is adjournment. And if the people who have come to hear this here, if y'all would please sign the sign-in sheet that I forgot to put out there. I'm so sorry that I did that, but we really want to know who you are in case we need to get in touch with you again. So, thank you. Okay, we are adjourned.